My wife asked for a month to figure things out with our hot neighbor. I just need time to spend with Jake and see if there's something real there, she said. I smiled and agreed. Then I called my lawyer. Let me back up. I'm Mike, 31, and I'm a senior software developer making $127,000 a year at a tech company downtown. Laura is my wife of 5 years, currently unemployed and living off my income. She used to work in marketing, but quit 2 years ago to focus on herself, which mostly meant yoga classes and Netflix while I worked 50-hour weeks. Everything changed when Jake moved in next door 3 months ago. He's 28, a personal trainer with the kind of body that comes from spending 4 hours a day at the gym. Within a week of moving in, Laura suddenly developed an interest in fitness. She bought $300 worth of workout clothes and started jogging every morning. Coincidentally, at the exact time Jake did his runs. I'm not stupid. I have a computer science degree and I analyze data for a living. When your wife goes from zero interest in exercise to suddenly needing to stretch in the front yard every time the neighbor washes his car, you don't need advanced algorithms to see the pattern. The signs were everywhere. Laura started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. She'd flip it face down whenever I walked into a room and take it with her to the bathroom. Her Instagram activity spiked, specifically on Jake's posts, which I confirmed by checking our Wi-Fi router logs. Yes, I monitor our network traffic. It's a professional habit that was about to pay dividends. She began baking again for the first time in years, but the cookies never made it to our kitchen. Instead, I'd watch from my home office window as she delivered fresh batches to Jake's front door, staying for 20 to 30-minute neighborly chats that involved a lot of hair flipping and laughter. The breaking point came last Saturday morning. Laura sat across from me at our kitchen table, fidgeting with her phone and avoiding eye contact. When she finally spoke, her words hit like a system crash. I think I have feelings for Jake, she said, as casually as if she was commenting on the weather. I need time to figure things out. Maybe I could take a month to explore this connection and see if there's something real there. If it doesn't work out, we can focus on rebuilding us. I stared at her, processing what she'd just proposed. My wife wanted to take a trial run with another man while keeping me as her backup plan. She wanted to test drive the newer model while keeping the reliable sedan parked in the garage, just in case. You're serious? I asked. She nodded eagerly. I know it sounds unconventional, but I don't want to throw away what we have without being sure. I don't want to live with regrets. Here's what Laura didn't know about me. I don't make emotional decisions. I make strategic ones. And right then, my mind was already 3 steps ahead, calculating her vulnerabilities and my advantages. Laura was completely financially dependent on me. The house was in my name only. I'd bought it before we married with money from a software patent I'd sold. Her name wasn't on the mortgage, the utilities, or any of our major accounts. She had about $1,200 in her personal checking account and no income stream. She also didn't know about the $67,000 sitting in my investment account from freelance consulting projects, or the $23,000 bonus I'd received last month that I hadn't mentioned. While she was planning her romantic adventure, I was looking at a complete financial profile that heavily favored me. All right, I said, leaning back in my chair. If that's what you need to do, go ahead. Laura blinked, clearly expecting more resistance. Really? Sure, do what you need to do. The relief on her face was almost insulting. She actually reached across to squeeze my hand, thanking me for being so understanding. I pulled my hand away and stood up. I'll give you some space to pack, I said flatly. What Laura interpreted as calm acceptance was actually strategic positioning. The moment she walked out that door, she'd be forfeiting any claim to the moral high ground. In family court, abandoning your spouse to live with another person doesn't play well, regardless of whether you call it finding yourself. Over the next 3 days, I watched Laura pack her things with the enthusiasm of someone heading to summer camp. She took casual clothes, workout gear, and her toiletries, leaving behind anything that suggested permanence. She kept talking about just a month and figuring things out, as if she was conducting some kind of scientific experiment rather than blowing up our marriage. The morning she left, she actually hugged me goodbye. Thank you for understanding, she said. This is the right thing for us. I nodded and watched her walk across the yard to Jake's house, rolling her suitcase behind her like she was checking into a hotel. The moment she disappeared through his front door, I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Thomas Mitchell had handled the legal work when I'd patented my inventory management software 2 years earlier. He was sharp, expensive, and had a reputation for being ruthless when necessary. More importantly, he specialized in intellectual property and divorce law, a combination that had served several of my tech colleagues well during their own marital implosions. "Mike," Tom's voice was crisp and professional. "What can I do for you?" "My wife just moved in with another man for a month-long trial run," I said. "She wants to see if the grass is greener before deciding whether to stay married to me." There was a pause. "Are you recording this call?" "No, but I have documentation of her activities leading up to this. Wrote her logs showing her social media stalking, timestamps of her visits to his house, and a clear pattern of deception." "Bring everything to my office tomorrow at 2 p.m., Tom said. "We'll discuss your options." That afternoon, I began what I privately called Operation Backup Plan. If Laura thought she could use me as her safety net, she was about to learn about risk management the hard way. I started by securing my assets. I transferred the $67,000 from my investment account into a separate account at a different bank, along with my $23,000 bonus. Colorado is an equitable distribution state, but assets acquired before marriage and kept separate generally remain separate. Laura's decision to abandon the household would only strengthen my position. Next, I documented everything. I printed copies of our bank statements showing her zero income contribution over the past 2 years. I compiled evidence of her affair, including the router log showing her obsessive social media monitoring of Jake, and timestamps correlating her internet activity with her sudden personality changes. I also started networking. My college buddy Derek worked as a private investigator in Denver, specializing in domestic cases. Over beers that Thursday, I mentioned Laura's situation. "You want surveillance?" Derek asked. "I want documentation," I corrected. "If this goes to court, I need proof of abandonment and adultery." Derek nodded. "Standard rate is $75 an hour plus expenses. For detailed documentation, including photos and activity logs, figure about $1,500 for comprehensive coverage." "Do it." By the end of the first week, I had a complete legal strategy mapped out. Tom had filed preliminary divorce papers, which we'd hold in reserve. Derek was building a comprehensive file of Laura's activities with Jake, including photos of her entering and leaving his house at all hours and cozy restaurant dates around town. Meanwhile, I was thriving. Without Laura's constant chatter and complaints, I was getting more done at work. I picked up 2 new freelance consulting contracts worth $8,000 each. I started working out regularly at a gym across town, partly for stress relief and partly because I knew I'd be back on the dating market soon. Friends and family began asking where Laura was. I kept my explanations brief and factual. "She's staying with a friend while we work through some issues." I didn't elaborate, and most people didn't push. But I could see the questions in their eyes, especially when Jake's car wasn't in his driveway and Laura's car was. My dad was the only person I told the complete truth. When I called to update him, his reaction was swift and decisive. "Son, I'm proud of you for not begging her to come back," he said. "A woman who'd pull this stunt isn't worth fighting for. Let Jake have her, and good riddance." 3 weeks into Laura's romantic experiment, Derek provided his first detailed report. Laura and Jake were definitely living together, but cracks were already showing. Derek had observed 2 heated arguments outside Jake's house, including one where Laura stormed off for several hours before returning after midnight. "Your wife's discovering that living with a personal trainer isn't quite the fantasy she imagined," Derek reported. "Guy goes to bed at 9 p.m. and gets up at... She's used to sleeping until 10 a.m. and staying up watching Netflix. Also, he meal preps everything, and there's basically no junk food in his house. She hit a drive-thru 3 times this week. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The reality check I'd been expecting came exactly 4 weeks after Laura left. I was working in my home office when I heard a car door slam. Through my window, I watched Laura wheel her suitcase back across the yard, her expression a mix of determination and desperation. She let herself in through the front door. She still had her key, and called out cheerfully, "Hey, I'm back." I saved my work and walked to the living room, where Laura was standing with her suitcase, looking around as if she expected everything to be exactly as she'd left it. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, probably purchased for her Jake adventure. "We need to talk," she announced, settling onto the couch with the confidence of someone who assumed she still belonged there. I muted the TV and crossed my arms. "Talk." Laura launched into what was clearly a rehearsed speech about self-discovery and relationship growth. "I've done a lot of thinking, and I've realized some important things about myself and about us," she began. "Jake's a great guy, but he's not what I need. He's immature and doesn't have the stability you provide. I think I was just caught up in the excitement of something new." She paused, clearly expecting some kind of emotional response. When I remained silent, she continued. "I know I hurt you, but I really believe we can work through this. We have so much history together, Mike. That's not something you just throw away." When she finished her presentation, I walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer where I'd stored the divorce papers Tom had prepared. I set them on the coffee table in front of her. Laura's face went white. "What is this?" "Divorce papers." She let out a nervous laugh. "You're kidding." "I'm not kidding." For several seconds, she stared at the documents as if they might disappear. Then she looked up at me with wide eyes. "You're actually divorcing me?" "I'm not interested in being your second choice, Laura." Her shock quickly turned to anger. "Second choice? That's not what this was. I was confused and needed time to figure things out. And in the process, you decided to test drive another relationship while keeping me as your backup plan," I replied calmly. "You abandoned our marriage to live with another man, and now you're back because it didn't work out. Did you honestly think I'd just take you back like nothing happened?" Laura stood up, her face flushing red. "It wasn't like that. I was trying to do the right thing. I didn't want to stay and resent you later." "You thought you could have it both ways," I said. "You thought you could explore your options while keeping me on standby in case your experiment failed." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. For the first time, she seemed to realize how her actions might look from my perspective. "You're making a mistake," she said finally, her voice shaking. "We can fix this." "No, we can't. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." The rest of our conversation was a blur of tears, accusations, and desperate bargaining. Laura tried every angle she could think of. Our shared history, our house, even the possibility of starting a family someday. Nothing worked. When she finally realized I wasn't changing my mind, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I called Tom immediately. "She's seen the papers," I reported. "How'd she take it?" "Not well, but she's out of the house now." "Do you want to give her time to process, or should we move forward?" "Move forward." Tom filed the papers the next morning. Laura was officially served at Jake's house. Derek had confirmed she was staying there again, presumably after their romantic reunion didn't go as planned. What followed was exactly what I'd expected, a desperate campaign to change my mind. Laura showed up at my office, called repeatedly, and even tried to get mutual friends to intervene on her behalf. She seemed genuinely shocked that I wasn't willing to forgive and forget. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Laura tried to claim she deserved spousal support, arguing that she'd sacrificed her career for our marriage. The judge wasn't impressed, especially when Tom presented evidence of her abandonment and adultery. "Your Honor," Tom argued, "Mrs. Peterson left the marital home voluntarily to pursue a relationship with another man. She can hardly claim financial hardship as a result of sacrificing for a marriage she chose to abandon." Laura's lawyer tried to paint her month with Jake as a temporary separation rather than abandonment. But Derek's documentation told a different story. Photos of Laura and Jake holding hands at restaurants, entering and leaving his house together, and even a particularly damaging shot of her kissing him goodbye outside a movie theater made it clear this wasn't just a woman taking space to think. In the end, we reached a settlement that heavily favored me. Laura received $15,000 as a lump sum payment and some furniture she'd selected during our marriage. But I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and the bulk of our assets. The judge noted that since the house had been purchased before our marriage with my separate funds, and Laura had contributed nothing to the mortgage payments, she had no claim to it. The final hearing was held on a Thursday morning in October. Sitting in that courtroom, watching Laura sign the papers that would officially end our marriage, felt surreal. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't been sleeping well. When her lawyer handed her the pen, She stared at it for nearly a minute before finally scrawling her signature across the bottom of the page. After the hearing, she approached me in the hallway. "Mike," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. For everything." I looked at her, trying to find some trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years earlier, but all I saw was someone who'd made a series of catastrophically bad decisions and was now facing the consequences. "I know you are," I replied, "but sorry doesn't fix this." Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out as if to hug me, but I stepped back. "Take care of yourself, Laura." 3 months after our divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Jake had moved on to a new girlfriend, a 24-year-old yoga instructor he'd met at his gym. Laura was reportedly staying with her sister while she figured out her next move. I felt no satisfaction hearing about her struggles, but I didn't feel sorry for her either. She'd made her choices with full knowledge of what she was risking, and now she was living with the consequences. As for me, I'm doing well. The house feels peaceful without the constant drama Laura brought to every situation. I've been promoted to lead developer at my company, which came with a $15,000 raise. The consulting work is steady, and I'm building a solid financial foundation for whatever comes next. I've started dating again, though I'm in no rush to remarry. I've learned that I'd rather be alone than with someone who sees me as a safety net, rather than a choice they're excited to make every day. Looking back, I don't regret how I handled Laura's betrayal. She thought she could have it both ways: adventure with Jake and security with me. She learned the hard way that life doesn't work that way. When someone shows you that they don't value what you've built together, believe them the first time. Laura's month-long experiment in finding herself cost her a stable marriage, financial security, and a partner who'd been committed to building a future together. Meanwhile, her attempt to use me as a backup plan backfired spectacularly when she discovered I wasn't willing to be anyone's second choice. The last I heard, she was working part-time at a retail store while living in her sister's spare bedroom. Jake, meanwhile, had apparently never seen their relationship as anything more than a temporary arrangement. Laura had burned down her marriage for a man who was never planning to offer her anything permanent. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be someone's fallback option. Laura made her bed with Jake, quite literally. Now she gets to sleep in it, or, in this case, on her sister's couch.